Welcome to Mindful English Podcast.
Welcome back to Mindful English. I am James and I am here with Ruby. Today, we are having a slow, deep conversation about the fear of speaking English, helping you let go of the pressure to be perfect and find your own unique voice.
Thank you, James. It is such a pleasure to be here. I think many people listening right now will recognize that feeling of being frozen. It is not just about words, it is a full-body experience that can be quite overwhelming.
It truly is. How does it feel for you when that anxiety starts to rise during a conversation?
My heart starts to beat faster, my palms get a bit sweaty, and I feel this tight sensation in my chest. It's as if my throat closes up.
That is a very natural response. Your body is just preparing for a challenge it perceives as a threat. It's the classic fight or flight response kicking in when you least want it to.
But my mind goes completely blank. Why does the mind shut down like that when we need it the most? It is so frustrating to know the words in my head, but not be able to pull them out.
It's a defense mechanism. Your brain is trying to protect you from the fear of being judged or making an error. It prioritizes safety over communication.
It makes me feel very vulnerable, like I'm being watched under a microscope by everyone in the room.
Vulnerability is actually the first step to real growth. You cannot evolve without being willing to be seen while you're still in the learning process.
That's an interesting way to look at it, but stepping out of that comfort zone still feels so risky to me. I fear that if I make a mistake, I will look unintelligent.
Do you remember your first public attempt to speak English?
I do, and it was quite nerve-wracking. I was in a small, crowded shop and tried to ask for directions to the nearest train station.
Did you succeed despite the nerves?
I did, but I felt like I was trembling the whole time. My voice was shaking, and I kept repeating the same word.
But the shopkeeper understood you, right? They helped you, didn't they?
Yes, they were very kind. They smiled, nodded, and pointed the way clearly. They didn't seem bothered at all.
That's the beauty of human connection. They did not care about your tense, your grammar, or your accent. They only cared that you were trying to communicate and that they could help you.
I think I focus too much on my own internal standards. I want everything to be perfect before I even open my mouth.
And that's exactly where the trap lies. You're treating a living, breathing conversation like a written exam where mistakes lead to a bad grade.
But in life, there are no grades, are there?
Exactly. There are only connections. And every time you reach out and try, you're building a bridge.
I love that idea of a bridge, but sometimes the gap between what I want to say and what I actually say feels too wide. How do I stop that frustration from taking over?
It starts with shifting your perspective on what success looks like. If your goal is to be grammatically perfect, you'll always be frustrated. If your goal is simply to be understood, you've already succeeded most of the time.
So I should just lower my expectations? That sounds a bit discouraging.
Not lower, but rather refine. Instead of expecting perfection, expect connection. Ask yourself, did the other person get my point? Did we share a moment? If the answer is yes, then you've done a fantastic job, regardless of the broken sentences.
That actually makes me feel much more capable. But what about the technical side? I feel like my vocabulary vanishes the moment I get nervous.
That's common because your brain is under stress. When you're stressed, your cognitive functions, like recalling complex vocabulary, become harder. This is why we recommend simple, slow, and steady language. Don't reach for the most complex word, reach for the clearest one.
So simple language is actually more effective when I'm nervous?
Absolutely. Simple language is functional language. Think of the great communicators. They aren't usually using the most obscure words. They're using the most direct ones.
I guess I've been trying to sound smart instead of trying to sound clear.
That's a very common trap for language learners. We think that using big words will hide our nervousness or make us look more advanced, but honestly, it often just creates more room for error and increases the pressure.
That makes so much sense. I remember a time I tried to use a complex idiom and completely misused it. It was so embarrassing.
We've all been there. I once tried to use a complex phrasal verb in a professional setting and ended up saying something that sounded quite silly. We laughed about it later, but in the moment, it felt like a disaster.
How did you recover? Did you just keep talking?
I acknowledged it. I smiled and said, I think I used the wrong word there, didn't I? Being honest about the mistake actually made the person I was talking to feel more comfortable. It showed that I wasn't taking myself too seriously.
Being vulnerable by admitting the mistake, that's actually a form of confidence, isn't it?
Precisely. It shows you're secure enough to be imperfect, and people are almost always drawn to that kind of honesty. It builds trust, which is the foundation of any good conversation.
So instead of trying to hide the mistake, I should just own it?
Exactly. Own it, laugh about it, and move on. The conversation doesn't stop because of a wrong verb, but it does stall if you freeze up trying to fix it. I think there's another aspect we often overlook, Ruby. It's the power of active listening during those moments when you feel the anxiety rising. When you're so busy rehearsing your next sentence in your mind, you're not actually present with the person in front of you.
You're so right. I do that all the time. I'm standing there nodding politely, but my brain is working overtime trying to translate, conjugate, and perfect the response I haven't even given yet.
And while you're busy doing that, you miss the nuance of what they're saying. You miss their body language, the tone in their voice, and the natural flow of the conversation. It creates this disconnect, which in turn feeds your anxiety because you feel like you're struggling to keep up.
So, by trying to be prepared, I'm actually making the communication harder?
Exactly. Imagine if you just let go of that need to have the perfect sentence ready. What if you just listened, truly listened to what they were saying, and let your response come naturally, even if it's just a simple, I see, or that's interesting?
That sounds incredibly liberating. It means I don't have to carry the whole weight of the conversation on my shoulders. I can just be a participant, not a performer.
That's the perfect distinction. You're not a performer on a stage, you're a human being in a shared space.
But what if I don't understand something? That's my biggest fear, being asked a question and having no idea what the answer is, or worse, not even understanding the question itself.
That's a classic challenge, but even native speakers get confused or mishear things or ask for clarification. Why do we think we're not allowed to do the same?
It feels like if I ask, can you repeat that, or what do you mean, I'm admitting that I don't belong in that conversation.
On the contrary, it shows you're engaged. It shows you care enough about what they're saying that you want to be sure you have understood it correctly.
I never thought of it as a sign of engagement. I always viewed it as a failure of my listening skills.
Shift your language. Instead of saying, I didn't understand, I'm failing, try, could you explain that part again? I want to make sure I'm following your point. See the difference?
The second one sounds much more proactive. It keeps the conversation moving rather than bringing it to a halt with an apology.
Precisely. It turns a stop into a step. And you'll find that most people are actually quite happy to rephrase themselves. They want to be understood as much as you want to understand them.
It's fascinating how much of this is really just about our own internal narrative. We tell ourselves these stories about how we're perceived, and those stories become our reality.
We are the authors of those stories, Ruby, and we can edit them anytime. We can choose to write a story where we are capable learners who are allowed to be human, instead of a story where we are constantly failing to be perfect machines.
I'm going to try to rewrite my narrative today, starting with the next person I talk to. I'll focus on the connection, not the performance.
That's a beautiful commitment. Let's talk about how to sustain that focus when the conversation gets a bit more complex. What if the topic is something you don't have the vocabulary for?
That is exactly where my anxiety hits a wall, James. When the topic is complex, like talking about technology, politics, or deep emotions, my usual vocabulary just feels insufficient. I feel like I'm trying to explain a detailed painting with only a black and white pencil. How do you handle those moments when you simply lack these specific words? It happens to all of us, even in our native languages. The key is to embrace the art of description, or what we call circumlocution. Instead of stopping because you don't know the exact technical term, try describing what that thing does or what it looks like. For example, if you can't remember the word for thermometer, you can say the tool used to measure how hot or cold it is. So I described the concept rather than searching for the label. That sounds like it would take longer, but it keeps the conversation alive. Exactly. And usually the person you are talking to will jump in and say, "Oh, you mean a thermometer." It turns the conversation into a collaborative effort. You are building the bridge together, stone by stone. It takes the pressure off you to be a walking dictionary and turns the interaction into a shared puzzle. I love that perspective. It stops being about me succeeding and starts being about us understanding. But tell me, how do you manage the pace? Sometimes when I'm nervous, I speak too fast because I want to get the sentence out before my brain loses it. That is a classic symptom of the anxiety loop. When you speak too fast, you are literally running away from your own thoughts. You aren't giving your brain time to retrieve the words, and you aren't giving your mouth time to articulate them clearly. I always suggest the 3-second rule. The 3-second rule? What is that? Whenever you feel the urge to rush, or whenever someone asks you a question, consciously count to 3 in your head before you start speaking. It sounds like a long time, but it's really just a moment. It does 2 things. It slows your heart rate down, and it gives your brain a chance to organize the core structure of your sentence. 3 seconds. That's enough time to take a deep, grounding breath. It would definitely stop me from starting a sentence that I don't know how to finish. Precisely. And you know what the best part is? To the listener, those 3 seconds don't look like you're struggling. They look like you're being thoughtful. They look like you're really considering what they said. It projects confidence. It's amazing how the same action, a pause, can be perceived so differently depending on our internal state. If I'm anxious, I think the pause makes me look incompetent. If I'm intentional, it makes me look thoughtful. It is all in the intent. When you pause to think, you are being the mindful speaker we keep talking about. You are valuing the interaction enough to give it your full attention. It's a way of saying, your words are important to me, so I am taking the time to craft my response. That's a wonderful way to reframe it. But what about the listeners who might be impatient? Sometimes I feel like if I take 3 seconds, I'm losing their interest. If someone cannot wait 3 seconds for you to think, then they are not very good conversation partner to begin with. But honestly, Ruby, most people are perfectly happy with a brief pause. They're usually just as distracted and busy in their own heads as we are. They won't notice your pause as much as you do. That is so true. I'm the one hyper-focusing on every millisecond of silence, not them. They're just waiting for the next word. Exactly. So stop auditing your own performance. Just be present. Tell me, do you ever feel like you have to have a perfect accent too? That's another huge layer of anxiety I see in our community. Oh, absolutely. I spend so much time listening to how people say certain sounds, and then I get frustrated when mine doesn't sound native. It makes me want to stay quiet so I don't sound wrong. That is a deep concern, Ruby. It really holds me back. Why does sounding native matter so much? I think it makes me feel authentic. But your voice is already authentic. How so? It carries your unique story and background. That is a nice way to see it. Focus on clarity, not on being native. Clarity feels much more achievable. Can people understand you right now? Yes, they usually do. Then you are already succeeding. I never thought of it as success. It is, because communication is happening. So accents are just personal markers? Exactly. They are part of who you are. I should stop trying to hide mine. Yes, embrace your unique sound. What about when I use the wrong word? Just correct yourself and move on. Is it that simple? It is if you stay calm. I guess I overcomplicate everything. We all do that sometimes. How can I stay calm during errors? Breathe into the mistake. Let it be a small moment. Let it pass like a cloud. I love that image. Do not dwell on the past word. Look toward the next one. Yes, keep moving forward. This practice feels really empowering. You are finding your own flow. And my own pace, too. Pace is vital for mindfulness. I feel less like a machine now. You are a human being, Ruby. It's a relief to remember that. Language should feel like a dance. A dance with many steps, and some will be missteps. But the dance continues. The dance always continues. I want to keep dancing. Then let us keep talking. We have one final part to cover. The conclusion of our journey today. I am ready for the end. It's just a new beginning. We have covered so much ground today, Ruby. We really have, James. From the physical signs of anxiety to the beauty of pauses, and the importance of intent over perfection. I feel we have reached a good place. My mind feels much quieter now. That's the goal of Mindful English. To learn with peace, not pressure. Exactly, it's a steady journey, not a race to the finish line. We are all in this together. I feel brave enough to speak now. That makes me very happy to hear. Thank you for guiding me, James. You did the work, Ruby. We did it together. What is our final message to them? Be kind to your own voice, and keep showing up every day. Mistakes are just stepping stones, and your voice is enough. Always enough, just as it is. Stay mindful and stay present. Goodbye for now, friends. See you in the next episode.